Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the 91st Fireside Chat with Tom Campbell. It is a special edition today. It's our 10th anniversary. We've been doing this for 10 years. It's unbelievable. It wouldn't be possible without the help of so many people supporting the server and organizing scheduling and everyone asking their questions. And of course, special thanks to Tom for always being so gracious and answering every one of them. We really appreciate it. And I wanted to mention that if anyone is still sitting on the sidelines, to get engaged and get involved, get on the mailing list and get involved in some of these events that we put on. There's all kinds of events from Healing Weekly, and we do these fire chats every quarter. Um, there's so many ways to get involved. So if you're still sitting on the sidelines and you're watching this over the internet, get involved. There's so many cool people. And just this last year alone, I've met over a dozen new people from this community that I'm friends with, and we're making connections here, and it's really something special. So if you are still sitting on the sidelines, I encourage everyone to get involved and get engaged. And we have some special guests today, and we have some newcomers, and we're going to share some stories today, and also we have a bunch of people, more than normal. So we're going to try and get everyone's questions answered. So I won't take up any more time. So let's get right into it. Donna, you said we have someone special here today. Is that right? We have a few special guests?
We do. First of all, we're welcoming Ingeborg back to our fireside chat. She's been with us through the years. Thank you, Ingeborg. And she's brought a special guest with her today, and that is Tim Hawk. And Tim Hawk was a friend of Bob Monroe's way back in the day, and he has things to share and questions for Tom too. So let's start with you, Tom, Tim, and Tom. Tim and Tom.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Glad to be here. I found out about it from Ingeborg. We've been communicating about near death and different spiritual subjects, and she mentioned this program, and I thought, well, that's great. I'd love to attend. And I had heard about Tom before, but I think he was with Bob before my time there. But I heard about the good work he did, and am very interested in meeting, even if only virtually here. But I'm currently in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is near Washington, D.C., and maybe about 2.5, 3 hours from the Monroe Institute. I first got involved with the Institute. Well, I read Bob's book back whenever that was, 75, 76, something like that. And I went to the first program in 1977 with my ex-wife. He didn't conduct it himself. He had some trainers. Their name was Chris Lentz and Karen Malik back in those days. And they ran it at a different site. This was before he got the Institute, the new land and the community. But we went, and I had such a profound effect that I thought this is really interesting and I want to be involved in it. So I continued to go to programs and got to know Bob later when I actually went there and met him. And when he got the new land, I bought a piece of the property there from him, 5 acres, and built a home down there. And I lived there, I guess it was from about 1989 until shortly before he passed, 1994 or something like that. And got very involved. He was my neighbor. He used to come over for lunch. We had a lot of good communication, and I was friends with his son-in-law, which was Joe McMonagle, who's an excellent remote viewer, and knew Skip Atwater and the different people who were involved in the program there, and really enjoyed the time and had a great experience with it. And I consider him a very, very important teacher in my life. And eventually I had to move back up to Pennsylvania due to some other issues that came up. And I had my own business up there. I was a martial arts teacher for many years, and and got my degree in psychology, and then did counseling, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, that kind of thing along with it. So due to some financial things and other things, I did move back up, but I really valued that time that I shared there and spent there and learned a lot. So that's kind of my background story, unless you have another question for it or anything. And for Tom, I had the question about when he was actually there at the Institute. I think it was before Bob got the new land. And I don't know if he came there, if I may have ever met him or not, because I remember the name very well, but I didn't place it with a face at that time. So I guess that's my question, and I'm certainly open and very much want to hear all that's going on and what you're all involved with. So thank you.
Okay, well, I started interacting with Bob in probably 1971, very early 70s. And Dennis Menerick and I were going out there steadily by 1972. You know, we were spending about 20 hours a week with Bob. And that was at Whistlefield Farm, which was where Bob lived before. And I think about the time that, you know, Dennis and I, we worked together, and there was other people besides us. And Dennis came up with the binaural beat technology, and he and I, shall I say, we optimized it so we got the right frequencies and the right wave forms and so on that would optimize its effects. And then it got to be so popular because Bob started running a couple of seminars. We had that binaural beat technology made all the difference in the world. We tested it on lots of people, and we found that it worked on just about everybody. Had you know, something different happened when they got in the booth and put those headphones on and listened to the binaural beats. So then we thought we would, well, this was Bob's idea. He kind of put the word out, and pretty soon we were over at the old Tuckahoe Motel, stringing wire up in the attic so that they would have GSR and audio, and set that place up for courses. And then it got so popular that we needed to travel. So myself and Dennis and another guy called Bill Yost, who actually was my boss, we made these audio harnesses that like 28 people could lie down and plug in to one audio output. And these courses were given like in motels and hotels. You take a big conference room, move out all the tables and chairs, and people would come with air mattresses and that sort of thing, and be spread out on the floors with this big harness going right down the middle, and then all these wires popping off for earphones for everybody to get an earphone feed. So myself and Dennis would give these courses along with Nancy Lee. Now you probably know her as Scooter, but it's Nancy Lee McMonagle now. That was Nancy Lee Honeycutt at that time. So Dennis and Nancy Lee, or I and Nancy Lee, would go. Nancy Lee joined us as soon as she graduated from college. Once she came home from college, then she was part of the team with myself and Dennis, and we did most everything together out at the lab. She was kind of part of our group. It was this threesome. So one of us got to stay home and be with our wife and kids, and the other one and Nancy Lee would go off traveling. And that was happening about once a month. And having young children, wives, careers, and still spending 15 to 20 hours in the lab and then going off on weekends to run programs just got to be too much. And Dennis and I really didn't want to be trainers. We wanted to be researchers. So it wasn't really what we wanted to do. So at that time, I was just probably sliding out of the scene about the time you slipped in. You know, we didn't miss by much, but it was somewhere in toward the later 70s, you know, 77, 78, that I stopped going out so often. You know, it wasn't a really abrupt break. I was going out, you know, many times a week to maybe once a week to maybe once every other week. You know, it kind of dropped off over some months' time. And then I didn't go out except more socially than anything else. I'd just go out to see Bob because I'd spent, hundreds and hundreds of hours with him, and we were good friends at that point. So we just stop out every once in a while and just chat, with Bob and Nancy and whatever, if his children happen to be around, Nancy Lee and the others, Penny. So that was kind of when I was leaving in the late 70s, just probably as you were getting involved in it. I came back once a year for board meetings. I was a member of the board of directors for about another 10 years after that, up until the time that Bob died. And then after that, everything got reorganized and I wasn't a part of it at all. But for the next 10 years, I didn't show up there much except at board meetings. And that was just for a couple of days, sitting around talking about where TMI should go next and how could they expand and, that sort of thing. So that's sort of my association with it. But I agree, Bob was a very important teacher for me as well. I learned a lot in my time with him. It changed the path I was on rather dramatically. Not so much for the things Bob taught, because Bob was he was good. He led from the rear. He never got out in front and told you what you should expect, because that would be leading the witness. And he was very careful not to do that. He stayed and led from behind. So, here's the sounds, here's the tapes. Now go on out and have an experience. He never led us to have a certain kind of an experience. So it was all us just figuring things out as we went with Bob's guidance. And it was a really, magical time, good time, things, so many weird things happened, every week or every day, that we lost track of them. Normally something really, really strange happens, it's like a big deal and they talk about it and they tell their friends or they don't tell their friends, but it's a big thing. But for us, something really, really strange happening was just another day out at Whistlefield. So a lot of what we did never got recorded, was never put down. It just was stuff that happened and disappeared with the entropy of time moving on. It was a good time. So yeah, we just missed Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We must have, because I remember the program I was in was what you said. We were lying on the floor, 20 some of us, and it was somewhere in Virginia. They rented it was like a manor, almost like a Victorian manor. I forget what it was called. But it was large, and we stayed there, and that's where we had the program. And I do remember Scooter well. I liked her a lot, and she was always so bubbly and outgoing and friendly. And I have good memories of that. And one other thing I'll say, I remember Bob, I asked him one time, when we were finished, they would give us a cassette tape to take home with us. And it was an old cassette tape that he made, and it had this sound like shh, 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 this shuffling sound along with the binaural. And I asked him, what was that sound? It's really interesting at the end. And he told me, he said, it was the old silk shoe. He showed me on the floor. He started swirling his foot around and like making a shh, that sound. And he said, this was the sound on that tape. And it was a really unusual tape. It had the binaural beat, I guess, but it also had these sounds he must have added in. So that was fascinating. So yeah. So thanks for telling me about your time there.
Yeah, he actually had that sound reproduced by a electrical engineer lived over in Waynesboro. He took the sound he wanted, which was, yes, the silk shoe, as you say, but he talked to that engineer who built him a device that so it would also cascade in waves. You'd hear it and it would grow a little bit and then go down and then a little more volume. And so it was kind of a cascading swish, swish, swish kind of a sound. And it was there for two reasons. One, the actual surf itself had a shh, 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 which is 4 hertz. So he put that in as a 4 hertz sound. And the rest of it was basically, cover. If you have a sound that's pleasant and sounds natural, then you don't notice the dog barking, and other kinds of things that otherwise might, intrude on you. So some of it was just cover, and some of it was actually designed to help people focus. But it wasn't until then after Dennis and I came up with a binaural beat that he added that to his sound. Then he got a patent on that and called it hemisync. So and then he had I think his electrical engineer incorporate hemisync into the pattern that he had. So he actually generated those sounds in an electronic device.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was interesting.
Well, thank you, Tim, for your contribution. It's lovely to have you here. I hope you'll join us again.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Simon, and that's one I'm going to read to you. Tom, I've developed a lot of beliefs through a cone, and the 3-day eclipse triggered me so much that I thought at the end of 2021 it would happen and it would come to game over. One of the statements from the master was that you will be shaken physically and spiritually when the time comes. So when I went to bed with this unbelievable game over fear and in this focused situation, I vibrated like a smartphone on the table after a while. I knew as soon as I felt the vibration that the game over phase had begun. I got up as normal and walked around my apartment doing certain things that were told to me in the cone. That's an awakening experience or a dark night of the soul that he's talking about, to protect myself against the game over. When I looked over the balcony and saw the infinity of darkness, I knew I was in the game over phase. When I noticed that our kitchen was mirror inverted, I became very skeptical and realized that something was wrong. I went back into the bedroom and saw my body lying in bed. I watched myself for a moment and was shocked. Then the second vibration came up and I woke up. I now have the realization that my consciousness is not body bound. Also, the experience of what beliefs can cause. And since the out of body experience, I feel like I'm communicating with the LCS. My question now is, they say that you have to fight fears to achieve an out of body. But for me, it was the other way around. And I also feel a bit fooled by the LCS because this darkness finally fooled me into the 3-day eclipse. But where did the trigger come from? From the awareness unit, the IUOC, or the LCS? There's the source question. And I now do recognize the difference between spirit helpers and the LCS. I would also like to point out that you wrote something about spiritual game damage on page 161 of book 160 of book 1. Bang, splat, what a mess. Translated with deepl.com.
Okay, so that's it.
That's it.
That's a long question. Often when these things happen, yes, you do learn that your mind is a very powerful thing, and your beliefs coupled with your imagination can create all sorts of stories. And the stories seem to be very real in the sense that you play them out. You hear them, smell them, taste them, act them, you're physical in them. And it's very convincing that you are not doing this inside your mind, but you're doing this in an outside reality. But I suspect that the larger consciousness system knew that you were about ready to learn some things. And because you were about ready to learn some things, it kind of set you up for a situation that would have, sharp contrasts in it so that you would think, well, what did that mean? How did that work? Why is this way? And as you answered those questions for yourself, you would learn some things. about the nature of reality, and also, probably more importantly, about yourself and your own beliefs. This idea of fighting your fears fighting is not a good way to say that. And I never express it that way, as fighting your fears. Sometimes it may sound like that. But if it's a fighting thing, then you're working against yourself. You need to let go of your fears. You need to let them go. It's not that you need to grind them into dust. It doesn't work that way. The more you fight, the more you struggle, the tighter the fear grabs hold of you. You know, you're in your very fighting that you're going to kind of do that fear violence. That creates more strength in the fear, because that's a low, that's I should say a high entropy approach, the fighting. Better to understand the fear, accept that it is your fear, look at it and see how it has affected your life, and that will always come up with a negative story, and then have an intention to not be that way. Not an intention to wrestle it to the ground and subdue it, but attention to not be that way. And if you can keep that strong intention in your mind all day long, very slowly over weeks and months, that fear will get less and less and less until it disappears. Just your intention to get rid of it is the key thing. Not somehow you get super strong and and beat it up or choke it or do something to it. That kind of violence is just going in the wrong direction. You're approaching from high entropy, which is not what you want to do. You want to approach from low entropy. Yes, that's my fear. I accept that that's my fear. I see what it's been doing to me and how it's affected my choices. And now I don't want to be that way. And if you can seriously go through that sequence so that I don't want to be that way isn't just a wish, but it's really something you want to achieve. And you keep that in your mind all the time. Keep it in the back of your mind. Then the fear will begin to dissipate and you'll begin to get over it. You will catch yourself when you begin reacting out of that fear. And you go, oops, there I go again. Don't want to do that. And you'll back up from it. And then think about it. Why did I slip into that? Why was I slipping down that path to that fear reaction? What was it? I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to do it again. I'll be careful next time. So you keep it in your mind and keep working on it, and the fear will eventually diminish and go away. So that's how you fight fears. You don't fight them with superior force. You fight them with a desire to outgrow them and to let them be, so that they don't affect your life anymore. But it has to be serious. You really are changing yourself. It's not that you're modifying your belief system. It's not that that your intellect or that your image will be free of that fear and that you will act differently. You will indeed act differently, but that's not what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is be different. And it's really important to make that difference between acting and being. That you're not trying just to act different. Okay, I won't get angry next time this thing happens. I'm not going to have my buttons, pushed and I go off and get upset or angry or feel bad. It's not that you want to change your behavior. You want to change who you are so that those buttons just don't have that effect on you anymore. You've outgrown them. That's how you get rid of the fear. So I've spent a little extra time on that, probably more than the question warranted, because that's something that everybody wants to know. Okay, I've got fear. How do I get rid of it? Well, that's kind of the method in general. You'll have to find your own way. Everybody's different. You'll have to pick your own way. But the one thing's most important, you have to really want to get rid of it. Not just want to not act that way anymore, but not be that way. That is the most important part of the ingredient. It's you have to change yourself, not make yourself behave or make yourself react differently. That's just acting. And everybody can become a better actor, but that's not what we're about. It's becoming a better person.
What is the source? What triggered this?
Well, I think I started with that. Probably the larger
did.
conscious system set it up.
Yeah.
Because he was ready for a lesson. So it set that whole situation up with this is the end, it's all going to go away tonight and all that sort of thing. And then an out of body comes on top of that, and then a realization, and then he wakes up the next morning and everything's still here. And he just learned a lot about himself and reality. And typically that's just the way the LCS works. When you're ready, it contrives some sort of a sequence of events just to put you in a position where you're likely to learn.
Did you have a comment to make, Simon? I know. If you wish, you can.
Yes, thank you, Tom, for this answer. Yeah, really, it was a great event for me, and yeah, I really watching the realities, and I know what we are, and you're my big toe, what sends the message, and I'm here now. And now at this moment, I try to send the message other people's and helping them not to going in this dark soul event. Yes, that is not good way, and I have really or many videos to watching at the YouTube channel, and I have many information from the dark side of the soul, and yeah, it's really to self death this way. I hadn't this in head, and it's not good.
Thank you, Simon, for your comments, and thank you for trying to help others with what you've experienced and spreading Tom's work that way. And your English is just wonderful, by the way. No worries there. Thank you so much for being here. Hope we see you again soon.
Thank you, Donna, for this presentation for my question.
Of course.
Really good.
Thank you.
And Donna,
Thank you.
before we move on, I just two more things I'd like to say about fear, since we're kind of on that subject. And one of them is that if you have fear, then it's easier to have more fear. And when you get more fear, it's easier then to have more fear. Fear is one of those things that in the engineering world, we say it's positive feedback. It just keeps getting more and more and more until, like Simon, you kind of work yourself up into this tornado of fear that totally dominates your life. Fear is like that. So that's one thing, is that you have to be a little careful with your fear that you don't let it spin out of control. The other thing I want to mention is that people say, well, what fear? I don't think I have any fears. What are my fears? Do I have any? And they can't really relate to themselves and fear. Well, the way to assess that, whether or not you have fears, is to answer this question. Have in the last the last month or the last week, have you felt anything negative? In the last month, have you ever felt upset? Have you ever felt annoyed? Have you ever felt angry? Have you ever felt anxious? Have you ever felt unappreciated? We can go on and on with the adjectives, but basically it's something negative. It's not joy, peace, happiness, satisfaction. It could just even be mild. You just don't feel up for things. You don't have much energy. Well, all of that is negative. If you can remember having felt that way, having negative feelings, that's because you have fear. If you had no fear, you would never have a negative feeling. Your life would be nothing but joy, peace, satisfaction. So, the answer to do I have fears is easy. Just ask yourself, do I have negative feelings? And that's the way. Then it's a matter of isolating the fear, understanding the fear, and then resolving to get rid of the fear until you have none. And without fear, you have no buttons to push. Even if somebody's rude to you, it doesn't upset you. It doesn't make you angry. It doesn't even make you defensive. It makes you curious. Gee, I wonder why. That person must be having a really hard time. They're all wound up in some kind of a fear mess, and I wonder if there's anything I can do to help them out. You see, instead of having a negative reaction, you react to things like that positively rather than negatively. So just a little, since we're talking about fear, I wanted to round out the conversation on fear with that.
Well,
So
thank you, Tom.
back to you, Donna.
Thank you, Tom. I want to also bring up all of the points that you mentioned. Nathan is working on a fear clinic to present to the MBT community. He's a qualified counselor, and also he is very proficient in all of the aspects of Tom's theory, both the physics and the paranormal. And that's going to be something that's going to help people so much, because that's one of the most popular requests we have. And one of the most popular concerns we have are the fears. And getting rid of that makes your world so much nicer.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
a good thing to put in, Donna. If you feel like you need help with getting rid of your fears, that it's a difficult thing for you to do, Nathan, wave your hand there so we can see who you are. Yeah, there's Nathan, and get in touch with Nathan, and I guess you guys can figure out how to make that happen. But anyway, get in touch with Nathan, and he will be able to help you out. He's got some programs that help people who have trouble dealing with their fears to actually figure out what they are and get rid of them.
Nathan, if you'd like to speak just a few minutes about that, I know they're in development now, but please go ahead. And after that, Adam will introduce our next question.
I'll keep it brief so we can get to some questions here. I put my email in the chat if anyone here live has any questions about that. And if this goes up as a video on YouTube, the whole Fireside Chat, we'll make sure it's in the description as well, just to have people be able to reach out with more detailed information. We're doing our first cohort. It's going well. It's a wonderful program. And yeah, it's something that I want to make available to folks as much as possible. So thank you, Donna and Tom, and really you both are the reasons it's possible. So thank you.